Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NFL edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We're going to break down this Monday Night Football showdown slate at DraftKings. The doubleheader games are gone. We're just sticking with the solo games, but hopefully we can
Till next week.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, just for now. Last week I think also was a single, but hey, here we are.
No,
hopefully we can help you out if we do give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel. All right, let's get right into it.
Last awesome Miami
and
Tennessee 2-game slate.
Was it 2-game slate last week? Maybe I'm thinking of Thursday Night Football. Well,
yeah,
I actually like the 2-game slate because then you don't have to do just showdowns. You can kind of just do whatever you want. But it is what it is, man. We have to work with what we got. I think it's a pretty good game. It's got a 42.5 game total. It's not amazing, but sure beats that Monday night game between the Titans and Dolphins, which was like 37 or something really gross. So we know there's certainly upside for both these teams. The Saints scored 40 plus points in both their first 2 games, and the Chiefs haven't really gone off yet this year, but they definitely still have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and they have a really explosive rookie and Xavier Worthy. So there is potential in this. If I was betting on this game, I think the over would be kind of appealing. So I'm going to shy away from the defenses personally, and I think we're going to have a pretty decent game. Let's just work from the captain slot. Let's start up top and talk about the main guys. Obviously, they will shock nobody. I don't know if I would fully trust the ownership we're seeing here in the captain just yet, just because there are guys that are kind of seemingly left out. I would just keep updating that as we get closer to lock and go from there. But honestly, Alvin Kamara as the top projecting player and the top ownership player in the captain, I don't disagree with that. That makes sense. I don't think that will change. He has the best floor, best ceiling of anybody in this game. Worth noting, the Chiefs have been number 1 against running backs on the year, so that's not great, but we know he can get it done in the red zone and as a PPR machine. By the way, Taysom Hill is out, so he's not going to be getting vultured by Hill, at least. Could get vultured by Jamal Williams still, or they could throw when they're inside the 5 or something, but that's still worth noting. And then obviously we got Kelce, we got Mahomes and Olave. Those are the top 4 overall guys that we'll be looking at in terms of projection and ownership. So of that 4-pack, who are you getting the most ownership to? And do you have any interest in being overweight on Olave, who currently is carrying a fraction of the ownership of compared to those top 3 dudes?
Yeah, I'm going to be under on Olave in captain. Even if he's not super owned, I'm not really getting to him a lot. I'm getting to Kamara quite a bit. As of now, he's in about half of the lineups I built in the captains. Pretty huge gap between him and everyone else. He played over 80% of the snaps last week for the 2nd week in a row with Hill out, so that's noteworthy. Like you said, just the highest floor and ceiling on the slate. The role's pretty locked in. I'm not going to be too worried about Jamal Williams vulturing him. Like, if it happens, whatever, but easily the best play on the slate and someone I'm probably not going to overthink it with in captain.
Yeah, well, I think just for me, it's not going to be an overthink. I absolutely will get a lot of exposure to him if I'm trying to max the contest or something. But I probably will be a little bit underweight compared to the field just so I can get an immediate edge. The funny thing is, the guy I was going to try to do that with is Kelce, and they basically have split ownership up top. So I might look for other ways to get different with guys that I like, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But as far as captaining Kamara and Kelce and Mahomes and even Olave, I have nothing against any of those guys. I think I'd be personally overweight on Olave just because he is an explosive player and he's not carrying enough ownership. And it is what it is. The Chiefs do grade out as the toughest matchup for running backs. So if they do stifle Kamara, I mean, we've definitely seen it before where, he's not the PPR god this year that he has been in the past. He's honestly getting his value off of a ton of rushing attempts and scoring touchdowns. I think he has 5 touchdowns on the year. No, he has 6. So he's scoring. Obviously, that is still something he could do with Taysom Hill out. I agree. He's got the safest floor of anybody in this showdown contest. But as far as getting a little bit different and still having the ability to hit that ceiling, I think Olave coming at just 7%. I just don't know if that's going to be actually where it's at. But if it is, I would gladly be way, way over on Olave. All right, next tier guys here who all look pretty good. They're just not going to be as safe. See, that's the other thing. By the way, Kelce looks awesome. There's nothing wrong with Kelce at all. There's no Rashee Rice. Obviously, Hollywood Brown's been out the whole year. He's not coming back. And Saints grade out really poorly against tight ends on the year. So Kelsey did finally get it going last week. I just want to touch on him a little bit and get your thoughts as far as like, are you going to be overexposed here? Because last week, 7 catches, 89 yards on 9 targets. He's not scored a touchdown yet this year, but this is a favorable matchup. The Saints are what? Bottom. I guess they're not. They actually haven't allowed a touchdown this year, but as far as giving up production in general, they actually have been a positive matchup. So I like Kelsey a lot. I didn't love that when I looked in here that he was the second highest owned captain, but I think I'm still okay with that. How are you feeling about Kelsey and Mahomes? Are you kind of going Elvin or bust at captain tonight?
I have a lot more Kamara than anyone else, but I do
Yeah.
still have quite a bit of Kelsey. I think I'm over the field on him and captain. Getting a slight discount with him compared to the top 2 Saints and Mahomes, so I think that's useful. Just the targets should be there. I know he's been underwhelming overall this season, but like you said, kind of bounced back a little bit last week. Mahomes and captain's fine. He's been atrocious as well from a fantasy standpoint, but there aren't a lot of sexy pieces in this game, honestly, overall. So I think Mahomes and captain's still fine. I might come in around the field on him. And then the one I'm a bit over on as well is Kareem Hunt at 11-1 in the captain. Let's see what he did last week. He played 45% of the snaps in his first game with the team. He's affordable. He's clearly the best running back option they have these days with Pacheco out. And the discount compared to the other top plays in this game is useful. He's even cheaper than Rashid Shaheed. So comes in handy, and I think he's a pretty good captain play at 11-1.
Yeah, I agree. That's like that next tier of guys who probably don't have the built-in floor and perhaps not the proven ceiling of Kamara, Kelsey, Mahomes, and maybe even Olave. But yeah, Kareem Hunt looks awesome. Here's the thing, 45% of snaps, and I think it's like 13 total touches. And by the way, he was pretty efficient, 4.9 yards per carry, 8 yards per catch, or it was 16 total touches. He had 3 targets and 14 carries. But yeah, that was his first game back, man. And he was like majorly involved because Carson Steele fumbled right away. No Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming back this week. He is doubtful. So why wouldn't the Chiefs just put him out there like 70% of snaps in a big game at home here? I love Kareem Hunt. He's coming in at not even 7% ownership. Again, I don't know how much we can trust that ownership, but we'll have to see as we get closer to lock. But if that's going to be the case, I'll be very over on Kareem Hunt. I need him to get 28 fantasy points in our dynasty league. And that's not going to happen probably, but I'll be hopeful until it's over. Moving on, we're in agreement on Hunt. How are you feeling about Rashid Shaheed? He's kind of in the same neighborhood as far as projection and captain ownership. But obviously, he's kind of a deep threat touchdown guy or bust in fantasy. If we look at his game logs here, it kind of tells that story. First 2 games, he had a long touchdown, 16-plus fantasy points, nothing on 5 targets in game 3, and then he came back and got a couple deep shots and had 16 fantasy points again in week 4. So he's pretty hit or miss, but I mean, when he hits, boom, it's over. He gets a 60-yard touchdown or something, and he's coming out and doing well for you. So, what is your stance on Shaheed in captain and in general tonight?
I like him a bit. The big playability, like you said, is kind of appealing. It's pretty all or nothing, but he did have 11 targets last week, so it's not like he's just getting 3 deep looks a game and nothing else. He's been pretty involved overall. Let's see. That was his most targets of the season. He has at least 4 in every game. I think
a lot.
Fine.
By the way,
but I'm not looking
the
too far.
The most targets he had in any other game was 5. That's why. Like obviously,
Indeed.
looking at 11 targets, that's comforting. He didn't even score a touchdown at 16 fantasy points, but that's why I'm asking, because I'm like, yeah, he can hit in one play, but if he's only gonna get 5 targets against a tough defense that doesn't really give up big plays usually, like how interested should we be in him?
I think he's okay. He's not someone I'm like building around, but he's one of my higher owned flex plays. Not really in the captain. He's behind like 6 other dudes in terms of exposure and captain. So I'm okay with it. Certainly not expecting 11 targets again. That's pretty unreasonable, but clearly he's involved enough to pay off potentially.
All right, so kind of in the same vein as Shaheed here, and maybe a little bit more interesting because right now the ownership just isn't there. I'm going to guess that it's going to update and Xavier Worthy is going to be more owned in the captain than what we're seeing. But as it stands, he's completely unowned in the captain. So ownership aside, obviously if that ownership is legit, I'm very interested in Xavier Worthy. I'm pretty interested in him anyways. No Rashee Rice. They may have to throw in this game. He's another guy who can just deliver immediately in one play. They're going to use him all over the place too. So, I mean, I like Xavier a lot in the captain. What are your thoughts on him?
I'm not really getting there. I think he's kind of expensive for the role. Like, I understand that last week was essentially the first game without Rashee Rice since he went down really early. He still only has 4 targets at the most in every game so far. He may have a run play or two. They're going to get him involved with gadget stuff. Not sold that he's going to suddenly become this target magnet. He's just kind of out there for big plays and speed and stuff. He's tiny as well, so it's not like they can heavily for him with targets every single play. I think he's fine, but I think he's overpriced for the role he might play.
Yeah, well, I just think just naturally with no Rice there, his role has to increase to some degree. I do not necessarily think he's going to come out and get like 10 plus targets. I don't think that's going to be what it is, but I think the Chiefs are going to definitely pick their spots. I think they will get him involved on the ground a little bit too. And just like you said, kind of manufacture touches and use him as a gadget play. I think that's fine as long as they're actually hitting on those opportunities. The reality is though, he's super explosive, currently not owned, and there's no Rice. So there is the possibility of a volume uptick. So I'm very, very interested in him, especially with Kelsey and Mahomes being the top 2 Chiefs guys carrying a lot of ownership in the captain slot. You can still play Kelsey in the flex. You can still play Kamara in the flex, and then you can still get to Mahomes and complete the stack with Xavier and just go put Xavier in the captain. The only issue to me right now would be price, like you said. So if that price is kind of restrictive for you, if you put him in the captain, then it might be a little bit difficult to go get Kamara, Kelsey, and Mahomes. You might have to take a stand there against one of those guys. It gets pretty gross.
I'd rather punt with Justin Watson in captain. Played almost 70% of the snaps last week with Rice leaving early. Targets, okay. I'm expecting him to be Rashee Rice, obviously, but he's cheap. He's 5'1" in the captain. Kind of helps you do whatever you want with the rest of your build. And in theory, he's going to be the guy that kind of steps into a bigger role as well. I think Worthy might just play the same role he's been playing, where he's just kind of the big play, gadgety kind of threat. And then guys like Watson and Juju will be the ones who kind of see an uptick in snaps overall. I think Worthy is going to see around the same percentage of plays.
Yeah, I was just going to say it does get gross as far as like reliability goes, but absolutely you get into that third tier here where Justin Watson looks very interesting as a 5.1 captain. And like you said, Juju, I don't feel good about Juju, but he's played 52% of snaps or more in each of the last 2 games, and now Rashee is not there. So Juju definitely profiles as a similar kind of mid-range target hog like Rashee is. Like, he's not as good as Rashee is anymore. He's not as explosive as Rashee is, but that's kind of what he does. He's kind of like a slot guy, and he can just get short catches. And I mean, for full point PPR here, I think Juju could be kind of interesting. So he's not going to be owned at all. Kind of across the board, he's not getting that much ownership, and definitely not in captain. So I'm in agreement. I do like Justin Watson, and I like Juju a good amount, more than I feel comfortable with, to be honest. Another guy to watch out for going down and punting would be Sky Moore. He's not really playing a ton, but with Rashee not there, he probably is going to play maybe 30 or 40% of snaps. I don't want to captain Sky Moore, but he is going to be interesting in the flex because he's very, very cheap at 1.6K. Let's see. McCole Hardman, by the way, he doesn't really have a role really, but I guess he's a full participant. It looks like he's questionable, but it looks like he's going to play. Is there anybody else as far as like punts go that you are looking at, all things considered here with Rashee and Taysom Hill out?
In the captain or just in general?
Either. I mean, like Foster Moreau is one guy I would be looking at for the flex at 1.8K. Taysom Hill does take away some backup tight end snaps, so it is still dicey as hell, but Foster Moreau is going to play more than he usually does. So he does look like a viable flex play. But the funny thing is, Juwan Johnson is not that much more at 2.2K. He's definitely the way better play here. But I still think Foster Moreau is a little bit interesting just because if you're going to go all the way down here, these guys are almost the same price. Everybody's going to play Juwan. So Foster Moreau for tournaments is a little bit interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think you can even look at Mason Tipton at 1K flat, another type of Saints. He's had kind of, I think he had one target last week. He had a few the week before that. He's 1K, so certainly not in captain, but if you're going to punt all the way in flex, I don't see an issue with Tipton compared to Johnson and Moreau. Kind of all the same guy, essentially. And you're getting savings with Tipton.
Any interest in leveraging against the Hunt ownership and kind of banking on Carson Steele maintaining a role? He lost his role after losing that fumble last week. He had 3 total touches. So I personally don't want anything to do with him.
P. Ryan, because P. Ryan, could in theory catch some passes. He got a few carries last week with Hunt leading the way. P. Ryan's more expensive than Steele by 2K, but I would be terrified to play Steele and just for the potential you might not see the field at all. And he's 4-4, so he's not a punt. I feel pretty confident that P. Ryan is at least going to be the RB2, and Steele I would be a lot more concerned about. So not getting much of either of them. Honestly, I'm getting a lot more Hunt, as you would expect, but among the 2 other running backs, I would say P. Ryan's the one I feel better about.
Yeah, I would say in lineups that you're not going to play Kareem, P. Ryan is a pretty interesting pivot and a leverage play. I don't think he's garnering much ownership either, just in general, right? Yeah.
Probably not.
11%. I think that's pretty interesting, especially if they end up trailing in this game. It's not like Kareem Hunt can't be a third down back. He's definitely capable of doing that. But maybe they use P. Ryan in that capacity, and he did vulture a touchdown last week. And like at his, he is kind of expensive, 6.4K. But again, price and the presence of Hunt and Hunt's ownership, that is going to make P. Ryan a completely overlooked option. And I don't know. I think he's definitely a little interesting. I'm with you. I am off of Steele, though. All right, before we wrap it up here, let's go look at the positions we never really want to talk about. That would be defense and kicker. Not really positions we want to captain too much, but let's just consider the fact that the game total is not really big. It's 42.5. So I could be wrong. I'm going over it. So I would be going the other way here, but I do want to get your thoughts on this just because it is kind of a low game total. Let's see. Where's their ownership though for these plays? Chiefs defense are the highest owned of them, under 20%. So that just tells me even this, despite the game total, these guys are not going to be that owned. So are you going to be overweight on the kickers? Obviously Butker is one of the best kickers in the league. And they have Blake Group, or Groupie. I've never heard his name before. He also has been pretty good for the Saints. Hey, whatever, man. Never heard his name. Group, I think. I don't watch Saints games.
Groupie.
Okay, well there it is. It's Group or Groupie.
And
then obviously the Saints defense.
Based on red zone, I'm pretty sure it's Groupie, but whatever.
That's totally fair. So both defenses are pretty darn good on the year. They've been good. They're not giving up a lot of points. They're not giving up a ton of big plays. So you absolutely could argue going overweight on the defenses and even the kickers in a lower scoring game. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I don't mind them. I have a few lineups with the defenses and captain, actually, just because you never know. And if they score a touchdown, then you're suddenly looking pretty good there. And they're not going to be very owned. So differentiators in a game with a high total, I think defenses are always fine. Even in flex, I have quite a bit of the Saints defense. It looks like it's kickers, whatever. Like, it's really hard to analyze kickers. It seems like they're optimal every single showdown slate, so I assume it's going to be like 18 to 15 with nothing but field goals. But yeah, Butker and Groupie are both fine. One guy we didn't mention, I think is worth a mention because he's essentially the same as Justin Watson, is Noah Gray. The Chiefs' other tight end. He's on the field quite a bit, over 50% of the snaps every week. He's typically good for a handful of targets. He's cheaper than Watson on DK, which I think is pretty noteworthy. And I don't see any reason he can't put up the same stat line as guys like Juju or Watson. So Noah Gray is another kind of punt I have interest in on DK. Not in captain, but in flex for sure.
Yeah, Juju is an interesting case because he did score a touchdown 2 weeks ago, and then Rashid lasted not very long in the last game when he got hurt, and then Juju still had no targets in a close game against the Chargers. So, boy, is he scary. I think I definitely lean more towards Watson. I think Noah Gray is a good call. 2.6K in the flex. That's pretty good. He can definitely get you anywhere between 5 and 8 fantasy points pretty easily. But yeah, okay. So as we wrap it up here, what is your flag plant for Monday night here? Who's your favorite captain that you're going to be overexposed to? And maybe give a sleeper pick that you want to get behind and maybe slide into the captain a little bit more than everybody else is.
I think captaining one of the defenses is an interesting way to build. I don't think anyone's going to do it, and they're obviously affordable, and they're both pretty good defenses. So it's not like you're playing the Commanders in there or something like that. So I'm okay with the defenses and captain. I think my overall flag plan is just going to be Kareem Hunt. I expect him to be quite chalky, but he's just too cheap. He's 7,400 in the flex. I like him captain 11-1, even in flex. He might be in 100% of my lineups. It's the kind of thing where he's just cheap enough to where it's hard to get away from in the role that he looks like he's going to play. I wouldn't advise playing him in 100% of your lineups, but he just looks like a phenomenal.
Well, that's a big thing we always talk about, though. You have to take stands at certain points. So if maybe your stand is like Kareem Hunt is just going to ball out, and I'm going to commit to that. And if he doesn't, whatever, you lose that night, right? But if he does, then your lineups all have that one hit for sure, and then you just have to hope that the rest of the stuff works out for you. So I'm in agreement on everything you've said. You made some good calls. So I love Hunt. The ownership and captain right now looks amazing and weird. I don't really buy it fully, but I will definitely have a ton of exposure to him across the board in captain and flex. My flag plant is going to be Xavier Worthy. I just think with no Rashee Rice there, he's going to see at least a slight uptick in volume, and they need somebody to make plays on this offense. Obviously, Kelsey, his ownership is telling, and what he did last week, he's majorly involved. So everything that we've seen so far definitely suggests that Kelsey is in for a pretty good game. But if he's going to be that owned, and same with Mahomes, I'm going to look for other pieces that have the ability to, at least match them or exceed them. And Worthy is probably my favorite one to do that. Kind of as you suggested, so is Kareem Hunt. So my captain exposure is probably going to be, as far as going severely overweight, it's going to be Kareem, Olave, and Xavier Worthy. Still going to get exposure to Kamara, Kelsey, and Mahomes, but I really, really like going overweight on those three guys in particular. All right, that is going to do it for us. Hopefully this helps you out a little bit. If it does, give this video a like, and also consider subscribing to the channel so you get alerted to more videos just like this. Thanks for watching, and good luck.